Imagine waking up one morning to discover that the most powerful government on earth considers you more dangerous than international arms dealers, cartel leaders, and actual extremists. Welcome to the world of Assata Shakur, a 66-year-old grandmother whose crime was teaching people that Black Lives Matter. In 2013, the FBI made her the first woman on their most wanted list with a $2 million bounty. Her activities? Writing poetry, teaching English, and living peacefully in Cuba for 30 years. They stole her childhood by forcing her to grow up under Jim Crow. They stole her young adulthood by framing her for crimes she didn't commit. They stole her freedom by convicting her with fabricated evidence. They even tried to steal her motherhood by forcing her to give birth while chained to a hospital bed. But they couldn't steal her spirit. What you're about to discover will reveal the ugly machinery of American justice when it encounters Black resistance. The same tactics are being deployed today. In this video, you'll learn how a young woman's refusal to bow down became a 50-year campaign of government persecution, and why her story of resistance is more relevant than ever. Joanne Deborah Byron was born into Jim Crow America on July 16, 1947, when Black children learned that survival required invisibility. Her grandparents, Frank and Lula Hill, had radically different plans for their granddaughter. At age 3, Joanne moved with them to Wilmington, North Carolina, where they owned a beachfront restaurant. While other Black families taught their children to look down and mumble yes sir to white people, the Hills gave Joanne revolutionary training, disguised as etiquette lessons. "Hold your head up high," Frank Hill would say, "and don't you let me hear about anybody walking over my grandbaby." They forbade her from using the subservient language white society demanded from Black children. No yes ma'am or no sir, just direct eye contact and self-respect. By the time Joanne returned to New York as a teenager, she carried something dangerous: the unshakable belief that her humanity was equal to anyone's. The system would spend the next 30 years trying to destroy her for it. In 1964, while working a dead-end job for $95 a week, Joanne experienced a moment that would transform her into America's most wanted woman. During a heated discussion about Vietnam at a Broadway bar, she found herself defending America's war against communism. When an African student asked her to define communism, Joanne realized she had no idea what she was defending or attacking. "Only a fool lets somebody else tell him who his enemy is" became her guiding principle. The programming was broken. At Borough Manhattan Community College in 1967, Joanne joined 100 students who chained themselves to a campus building, demanding Black faculty and African American studies programs. The police arrived to arrest them, and something clicked for Joanne. Polite requests for equality had been ignored for decades, while bold action got immediate attention from administrators. She had discovered the power of disruption. By 1971, Joanne Byron was dead. She renamed herself Assata Shakur, she who struggles in West African languages, combined with the thankful one in Arabic. The name change represented complete rejection of the identity America had forced upon enslaved Africans and their descendants. "I didn't feel like no Joanne, or no Negro, or no American," she wrote. "I felt like an African woman." Assata's first stop was Oakland, California, where she joined the Black Panther Party at their peak influence. The Panthers weren't just talking revolution, they were building it. Their 45 chapters across America operated free breakfast programs that fed over 20,000 children every morning before school. Their medical clinics, staffed by volunteer doctors and nurses, provided free health care to communities the government had abandoned. Their liberation schools taught African-centered curricula that public schools refused to include. When Assata returned to Harlem, she threw herself into this life-saving work. She coordinated breakfast programs that kept hungry children fed and focused in school. She helped run free clinics that provided medical care to families who couldn't afford doctors. She organized community education programs that taught Black history erased from textbooks. This was the dangerous activity that caught the FBI's attention: feeding children and healing the sick in Black communities. Assata quickly became disillusioned with the Panthers. Despite revolutionary rhetoric, the organization replicated the same male chauvinism she'd experienced elsewhere. The leadership also lacked basic knowledge of African American history. They were reading from Mao's Red Book, but didn't know who Harriet Tubman was, she observed. When founder Huey Newton declared himself Supreme Commander, then changed his title to Supreme Servant, Assata realized the Panthers were becoming another cult of personality. She left to join the Black Liberation Army, not an organization with formal membership, but what she called a concept, a people's movement representing all Black resistance to oppression. The BLA emerged from the understanding that peaceful protests alone wouldn't end centuries of systematic harm against Black people. They provided armed protection for Black communities under attack, defended civil rights workers from vigilante attacks, and confronted police brutality head-on when legal channels failed. Speaking of resistance movements, if you want to resist the whitewashing of history and support our mission to uncover these suppressed stories, please subscribe to Black Stories Untold and help us spread the truth they don't want you to know. Now, back to the video. By 1971, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover had escalated his secret war against Black political organizations through COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program. Internal FBI memos, released decades later, reveal Hoover's explicit goal: prevent the rise of a Black messiah who could unite African Americans against systemic oppression. Assata Shakur represented everything Hoover feared. She was young, educated, articulate, and completely committed to Black liberation. The FBI created a special operation called Chesrob, short for Chesromard Heist, designed specifically to connect her to every bank theft and violent crime involving Black women on the East Coast. FBI agents weren't investigating crimes she had committed. They were manufacturing a criminal profile to justify destroying her. Between 1971 and 1973, Assata was charged with 2 bank heists in New York, the abduction of a Brooklyn dealer, attempted killing of police officers in Queens, and 8 other serious felonies across multiple states. In most cases, the evidence was fabricated or non-existent. The surveillance was total and deliberate psychological torture. Declassified FBI documents show agents photographing her entering buildings, tapping her phones, and compiling detailed reports on her daily activities. They followed her to grocery stores, libraries, and visits with friends. When she looked out her Harlem apartment window, she'd often see 2 white men pretending to read newspapers in an unmarked car. One FBI memo explicitly stated their strategy: create paranoia among Black activists and make them afraid to trust each other. They wanted to break her spirit before they broke her body. They succeeded only in making her more determined to fight back. May 2nd, 1973, 12:45 a.m. State Trooper James Harper spotted a white Pontiac Le Mans with Vermont plates traveling southbound on the New Jersey Turnpike with a broken taillight. The car carried 3 passengers: Sundiata Kohli behind the wheel, Assata in the front passenger seat, and Zaid Malik Shakur in the back. Harper called for backup, and Trooper Werner Forster arrived in a second patrol car. According to police reports, when Forster discovered weapons in the vehicle, a gunfight erupted. When the shooting stopped, both Forster and Zaid Shakur were dead. Harper was wounded. Assata was found with bullet wounds in both arms, her hands raised in surrender. The official narrative was simple: dangerous Black revolutionaries had executed a state trooper in cold blood. The medical evidence told a completely different story. Dr. Arthur Turner Davidson, a neurosurgeon at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, examined Assata's wounds at Roosevelt Hospital. The first bullet had entered her right clavicle and severed the median nerve in her arm, instantly paralyzing her right hand. The trajectory analysis showed both arms had been raised above her head when she was shot. Forensic tests revealed no gunpowder residue on her hands. Her fingerprints weren't found on any weapons at the scene. When Harper initially radioed for assistance, he never mentioned Forster's presence. Headquarters didn't know Forster was involved until his body was discovered over an hour later. Dr. Davidson's testimony was unequivocal. Assata's wounds could only have occurred if she was shot while surrendering with both hands raised. When prosecutors suggested she might have been hit while firing a weapon, Davidson replied simply, "Impossible." Between 1973 and 1977, prosecutors put Assata on trial 7 times for various charges. The pattern was consistent: dramatic accusations, weak evidence, and systematic bias built into every aspect of the proceedings. For the abduction trial, prosecutors accused her of stealing from a Brooklyn bar and holding the bartender for ransom. The star witness was a man who had already negotiated a plea deal in exchange for his testimony. After 3 months of proceedings, the jury deliberated for 7 hours before acquitting her completely. The bank heist trials followed similar scripts. Prosecutors showed grainy surveillance photos and claimed to identify Assata wearing disguises. Bank employees testified they were uncertain about their identification. When the FBI forced her to pose for comparison photos, a different judge ruled the photos inadmissible because they violated her constitutional rights. Trial after trial, Assata beat the system. 3 acquittals, 1 hung jury, 2 dismissals, 1 mistrial. The evidence of her innocence was overwhelming. But there was still one case left: the killing of Trooper Forster. And for this trial, the fix was in. The Forrester killing trial began in January 1977 in Morris County, New Jersey. Judge Theodore Appleby presided over a jury selection process that systematically excluded every potential black juror through various pretexts. Questions designed to reveal racial bias were forbidden. The final panel consisted of 15 white jurors, 5 of whom had personal connections to state troopers through family or friendships. Defense attorney William Kunstler attempted to introduce evidence of COINTELPRO harassment, arguing that Assata was a political prisoner being persecuted for her beliefs rather than her actions. Judge Appleby denied every motion to explore FBI misconduct, calling it irrelevant to the case. The prosecution presented no credible evidence linking Assata to Forrester's killing. Their star witness was Trooper Harper, whose testimony contradicted his own initial police reports. He claimed Assata shot him first, yet couldn't explain why he initially radioed for help without mentioning Forrester's presence at the scene. When Assata testified in her own defense, she spoke calmly and directly to the all-white jury. She explained that she had been shot while her hands were raised and had never fired a weapon. She described being beaten by police while chained to her hospital bed. Her testimony was consistent with every piece of physical evidence. The medical evidence proving her innocence was presented again, but the jury had already made their decision. The jury deliberated for 24 hours before returning their predetermined verdict: guilty on all counts. When asked by reporters how they could ignore such overwhelming evidence of innocence, one juror reportedly said she was probably guilty of something. She was sentenced to life in prison plus 26 to 33 additional years. Her response was barely audible: "I am ashamed that I have even taken part in this trial." Prison officials immediately subjected Assata to treatment that international human rights observers called torture. She was housed in men's facilities under 24-hour surveillance, kept in solitary confinement for 21 months, and forced to give birth while shackled to a hospital bed. A United Nations investigation cited her case as one of the worst examples of prisoner abuse in America, noting that no woman pre-trial detainee or prisoner has ever been treated as she was in the history of New Jersey. Maximum security couldn't contain the spirit of resistance. On November 2nd, 1979, 3 Black Liberation Army members entered Clinton Correctional Facility for women carrying concealed weapons. During what appeared to be a routine visit, they revealed .45 caliber pistols and a stick of dynamite, took correction officers as hostages, and commandeered a prison van. The escape was executed without harm. No guards or hostages were injured. Within hours, Assata Shakur was free, beginning a 5-year underground existence before reaching Cuba in 1984. President Fidel Castro granted Assata political asylum in Cuba, where she has lived for over 40 years. In 1987, she published Assata, an autobiography, a powerful memoir that exposed the truth about her persecution and became underground required reading for activists. Her influence on American culture has been profound. Hip-hop artists from Tupac, her godson, to Common to Public Enemy have immortalized her story in music reaching millions. Her words, "It is our duty to fight for our freedom," became the rallying cry for Black Lives Matter and countless other movements. Organizations like Assata's Daughters, founded in Chicago, carry forward her legacy of community organizing and police accountability work. When Colin Kaepernick's foundation donated $25,000 to the group in 2017, it represented the continued relevance of her message. The government response has been escalating persecution. In 2005, they doubled her bounty to $1 million. In 2013, they made her the first woman on the FBI's most wanted list and raised the bounty to $2 million. Consider the absurdity. A 78-year-old woman teaching English in Cuba is considered one of America's most dangerous people. At 78 years old, Assata Shakur represents complete victory over the machinery of oppression, and she shows us what's possible when we refuse to bow down. Every attempt to silence her has only amplified her message. When you hear Black Lives Matter activists chant, "It is our duty to fight for our freedom," they're channeling her unbreakable spirit. Organizations like Assata's Daughters continue her community organizing work, proving that her methods work and that Black people can make a difference in society. The government's $2 million bounty has become proof that even in exile, she remains too dangerous to ignore. They're still afraid because her ideas spread faster than they can contain them. Assata Shakur transformed from hunted fugitive to eternal inspiration, and her words continue lighting fires in our hearts, which refuse to accept injustice. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. If you believe these suppressed histories deserve to be told, subscribe to Black Stories Untold and share this video with everyone who needs to understand that resistance works. Speaking of black resistance that terrified the system, watch our video about A.G. Gaston, the millionaire who walked into a Birmingham police station with a briefcase full of cash and single-handedly bankrolled the civil rights movement. The revolution continues, one truth at a time.